The fluorescent lights hummed a weary tune in the nearly empty border clinic. For Nurse Anya, another marathon shift was bleeding into dawn. Then the doors burst open. Two men with faded ink covering their necks carried in a small, bleeding girl. "Fix her," one growled, his hand resting on a pistol. Anya worked through the night, saving a life. She had no idea the child belonged to El Silencio, the most feared cartel leader in northern Mexico. By sunrise, his gratitude arrived in the form of a line of black SUVs outside her apartment. This is the grim reality inside clinics along Mexico's northern border, where medical staff treat gunshot wounds and trauma without asking questions. For Nurse Anya, it was another anonymous child in a night of many, but her act of mercy breached an unspoken rule. In cartel-controlled territories, saving a life creates a debt, and the man known only as El Silencio always collects. What begins as a healer's duty transforms into a lethal contract, pulling an ordinary nurse into a shadow war where the only currency is loyalty, and the price of a life is your own. Anya Lopez moved to the border town of Santa Cecilia 6 months ago, trading a residency at a Monterrey hospital for a clinic where the lights flicker and the supply closet is often bare. The government offered triple the standard salary, plus student loan forgiveness, for a 2-year contract. They didn't mention the unspoken second contract, the one with the cartels. The Clinica Santa Cecilia served two populations, the town's impoverished residents and the anonymous wounded who arrived after dark. The protocol was simple. You asked no questions. You treated whoever was brought in. You documented nothing. You survived. The men who brought the girl that night were not the first armed visitors. Just 2 weeks prior, 4 gunmen had commandeered the operating room for 3 hours while a surgeon extracted bullets from a lieutenant of the Gulf Cartel. They took every staff phone, posted guards at every door, and left with a warning. You saw nothing. Anya's colleague, Dr. Mateo, had argued. He was found 2 days later in his car, a single gunshot wound to the head, his medical license placed neatly on his chest. So when the doors burst open at 3:17 a.m., Anya didn't scream, she assessed. 2 men, early 20s, faces tight with panic. The smaller one cradled a bundle wrapped in a blood-soaked serape. The scent of gunpowder and sweat cut through the antiseptic air. "She's not breathing," the taller one said in a choked voice, his knuckles white around a pistol grip. The fear in his eyes wasn't for himself. It was for the child. Anya's training took over. She snapped on gloves, her mind clicking through triage protocols she'd learned in a clean, well-funded simulation lab a world away. The girl was maybe 7 years old, a through-and-through gunshot wound to the upper thigh, femoral artery nicked but not severed. Shock, hypovolemia. The men had made a tourniquet from a belt, a clumsy but effective act that had likely saved her life during the frantic drive. "I need blood. O negative. Now." Anya barked at Rosa, the night receptionist, who was already moving toward the small, unreliable refrigerator that served as their blood bank. The next 47 minutes were a blur of pressure, gauze, IV lines, and the steady beep of a heart monitor that felt like a countdown. The men never left the room. One stood sentinel at the door, the other hovered behind Anya, his breath on her neck, his hand never far from his weapon. Every instruction was followed with silent, desperate urgency. They handed her instruments. They held the flashlight when the generator sputtered. They were, in that moment, not cartel enforcers but terrified guardians. As the girl's pulse stabilized and color returned to her cheeks, the atmosphere shifted. The panic receded, replaced by a cold, calculating silence. The taller man, Anya would later learn his name was Elias, studied her. He noted the steadiness of her hands, the lack of hysterics, the fact she hadn't once asked who they were or what had happened. These were the qualities that mattered in their world. At 4:45 a.m., with the girl sedated and stable in the clinic's only recovery bed, Elias spoke again. His voice was low, devoid of its earlier tremor. "You will stay with her until the sun is fully up. You will let no one else near. When we return, she must be able to travel." It wasn't a request. He placed a stack of $100 bills on the instrument tray, next to the spent bullet casing she dropped there. The money was for the supplies. The unspoken message was for her. They left as silently as they'd arrived, melting back into the pre-dawn darkness. The only evidence they'd been there was the sleeping child, the blood on the floor, and the cash. Anya followed orders. She sat in a plastic chair beside the bed, monitoring vitals, adjusting the drip, watching the girl's chest rise and fall. In the quiet, she noticed details. The girl's dress was expensive, handmade cotton from Oaxaca, now ruined. A small gold medallion of the Virgin of Guadalupe hung around her neck. This was not a child from the slums. This was a princess from a forbidden kingdom. The sun rose, casting harsh light on the clinic's stained walls. At 7 a.m., Rosa came in, her eyes wide. She saw the money, the blood, the child. She said only, "Anya, you should go home." Anya's shift had ended at 6. She was operating on borrowed time and someone else's rules. She numbly gathered her bag, leaving explicit instructions with Rosa, and stepped out into the dusty morning. Her apartment was a 10-minute walk away, a crumbling stucco box she shared with the heat and the cockroaches. She was 2 blocks away when she saw them. 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans with tinted windows, lined up neatly in front of her building like a funeral procession. Her blood went cold. They weren't the same men. These were older, professional. They wore tailored suits despite the heat, and their posture was that of soldiers, not street thugs. One stood by the lead vehicle, speaking into a wrist microphone. He turned and looked directly at her from 50 meters away. He didn't smile. He didn't move. He just watched, ensuring she saw them, ensuring she understood there was no running. This was not a thank you. This was a receipt. And as Anya Lopez forced her feet to carry her forward, one step at a time, toward that line of waiting vehicles, she realized the life she had saved last night might have cost her own. The door of the middle Suburban opened. A man in a charcoal suit stepped out. He removed his sunglasses. His eyes, dark and utterly devoid of emotion, locked onto hers. He didn't speak. He simply gestured for her to get in the car. The interior of the Suburban was ice cold, a tomb on wheels. The man in the charcoal suit gestured for Anya to sit. He slid in beside her, the door thudding shut with finality. They pulled away without a word. He didn't look at her. He watched the dusty streets of Santa Cecilia slide by, his face a mask of detached assessment. "The child's name is Valentina," he said finally, his Spanish precise, educated. "You stabilized her. For this, you have our thanks." The word thanks felt like a threat. "Where is she now? Is she okay?" Anya's voice was a dry rasp. "She is safe. Your work was adequate." He turned his head slowly, his gaze like a physical weight. "I am Ramon. You will come with me to see the patron. He wishes to express his gratitude personally." Anya's protest died in her throat. This wasn't a discussion. The vehicle was already heading east, away from the town, onto a private paved road that cut through the scrubland. After 20 minutes, high concrete walls topped with razor wire appeared, followed by a reinforced steel gate. Armed men with assault rifles watched from towers. This wasn't a hideout. It was a fortress. The hacienda inside was deceptively tranquil. White stucco, red tile roofs, bougainvillea cascading over archways. It could have been a luxury resort. But the silent men stationed every 10 meters, the security cameras tracking every angle, told the true story. Ramon led her through a courtyard to a shaded veranda. A man sat at a wrought iron table sipping espresso. He was in his late 40s, with silver at his temples and the calm, poised stillness of a deep-sea predator. This was El Silencio. He did not stand, he merely lifted his eyes. "Señorita Lopez, please sit." His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which made it all the more terrifying. "My daughter is alive because of you. This creates a debt." Anya found her courage, fueled by professional indignation. "There's no debt. I took an oath. I would have done the same for anyone." A faint, humorless smile touched his lips. "But you did not do it for anyone. You did it for Valentina. And in doing so, you entered a transactional space. The men who brought her to you were fools. They panicked. They compromised a secure location. They are being dealt with." The way he said "dealt with" made Anya's stomach twist. "But you performed under pressure. You ask no questions. These are valuable traits. He pushed a manila folder across the table. With trembling hands, Anya opened it. Inside were photographs of her leaving her apartment, of her mother's house in Guadalajara, of her younger brother entering his university. A beautiful family, El Silencio remarked. Safety is such a fragile thing. The threat was crystal clear. This was the cartel's true takeover strategy, not just seizing operating rooms, but seizing the lives of the people inside them. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "For now, only your continued discretion and your skills. Valentina will need follow-up care. It is inconvenient for us to travel. You will provide it here." He stated it as a simple fact. "You will be compensated, of course, generously. Your government salary is an insult. Your student debt will be erased. Your family will want for nothing." It was an offer she couldn't refuse, wrapped in the velvet glove of a bribe with the iron fist of threat just beneath. "And if I say no?" El Silencio took another sip of his espresso. "Then you say no. You will walk out of here. You will return to your clinic." He leaned forward slightly, the predator emerging. "But the world is a dangerous place, Nurse Lopez. Bandits on the roads, cartel violence. Who can say what might happen to a dedicated young doctor or her family in such uncertain times? A tragedy to lose two families." The message was absolute. Compliance meant protection for her and her loved ones. Resistance meant their annihilation. He stood, signaling the audience was over. "Rahman will see you home. Consider the proposal. You have until tomorrow evening to give your answer to him." He walked away, leaving her surrounded by silent guards, the folder of photographs burning in her hands. The ride back was a blur. Rahman dropped her at her apartment without a word. The Suburbans were gone. The street was normal, but everything had changed. For the next 24 hours, Anya moved in a state of suspended terror. She went to work. She treated a farmer with a machete cut, a child with bronchitis. She said nothing to Rosa, whose eyes held a silent, knowing pity. The clinic felt like a stage, and everyone was acting. That night, she called her mother. She listened to the familiar, worried voice talk about her brother's classes, about the new bakery that opened nearby. Normal life. A life held hostage by a man she'd met for 5 minutes. She didn't warn them. A warning might get them killed faster. The cartel's intelligence was clearly extensive. They'd know if she made such a call. The next evening, as the sun set, a black sedan, not a Suburban this time, pulled up. Rahman got out, holding a simple burner phone. "Your answer." Anya looked at the phone, then at the implacable man before her. She thought of her brother's face in the photograph. She thought of the oath she took to do no harm. In this moment, they were in direct conflict. To protect her family, she had to harm her own soul. "I'll do it," she said, the words tasting like ash. Rahman nodded, unsurprised. He handed her the phone. "This is your only line of contact. You will answer when it rings. You will keep it charged and with you at all times. You will tell no one, not a colleague, not a lover, no one. Tomorrow is Saturday. You will be picked up at 10 a.m. for your first visit. Bring your medical kit." He got back in the car and drove away. Anya was now a cartel doctor. The following morning, the system began. A different driver, same cold efficiency, took her back to the hacienda. She was led not to the main house, but to a separate casita that had been converted into a pristine private medical suite. Equipment that her clinic could only dream of: a portable ultrasound, a modern vital signs monitor, a fully stocked pharmacy, gleamed under bright lights. Valentina lay in a hospital bed, awake now, her dark eyes watching Anya with curiosity, not fear. The girl's recovery was the one point of light. She was resilient, sweet even. She didn't speak much, but she would smile when Anya changed her bandages. El Silencio was often present during these sessions, a silent observer in the corner, his expression unreadable. Anya did her job with clinical detachment, reporting only on vitals and wound healing. He would nod, say nothing, and leave. The payment started immediately. One morning, a plain envelope thick with cash appeared under her apartment door. A week later, She received an official-looking letter stating her student loans had been paid in full. The bribe was as systematic as the threat. For a month, this was the pattern. A weekly visit to the hacienda to check on Valentina, who was healing beautifully. The eerie, silent exchanges with El Silencio. The envelopes of cash. Anya began to hope, foolishly, that this was the extent of it. A temporary, horrible detour in her life that would end when Valentina was fully healed. Then the phone rang. It was a Thursday night. The voice on the other end was Ramon, but the instruction was new. Be ready in 30 minutes, a pickup. Bring your surgical kit. This is not for the girl. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was the pivot she'd been dreading. The sedan arrived. They didn't go to the hacienda. They drove for an hour into the remote foothills, finally stopping at a large, nondescript warehouse. Inside, it had been converted into a field hospital. Stainless steel tables, surgical lights, rows of supplies. And on one table, a young man, unconscious, a gunshot wound to his abdomen. He was shot in a confrontation with federals, Ramon said flatly. Extract the bullet. Stabilize him. You have 2 hours before we move him. This was the reality of the cartel's medical operations. Not just caring for innocent children caught in crossfire, but actively patching up soldiers so they could return to the fight. Anya's oath was being weaponized. She looked at the young man's face. He couldn't have been older than 20. A sicario, a killer. Her mind screamed that she should let him die. But then she saw the other men in the room armed, watching her. She saw Ramon's hand resting on his pistol. She thought of her mother, her brother. She put on her gloves. The surgery was the most morally corrupt 2 hours of her life. Her hands worked automatically, clamping, suturing, saving a life that would likely take others. When she was done, the man was stable. Ramon nodded. Good, he will live to fight another day, because of you. The words were a condemnation. As they drove her back, dawn breaking over the desert, Anya felt a piece of herself break off and die. She was no longer just a coerced caregiver. She was an accomplice. The line had been crossed and there was no walking it back. A week later, the phone rang again. This time, El Silencio's voice was on the other end, calm as ever. Nurse Lopez, your work has been noted. You have a gift for remaining calm. We have a new situation. It requires discretion beyond the surgical room. You will be picked up in 1 hour. Pack a bag for 3 days. The call ended. Anya stared at the phone. A bag for 3 days. This wasn't a simple medical procedure. This was something else entirely. The system of control was expanding, pulling her deeper into its machinery. She had no idea what a new situation meant, but the dread that filled her was absolute. She was no longer just their doctor. She was becoming their property. And as she mechanically threw clothes into a duffel bag, one terrifying question consumed her. What would they ask her to do next? The car that picked her up was a nondescript white van, the kind used for deliveries. Ramon was driving. He handed her a black hood. Put it on, now. The final shred of pretense was gone. She was not a guest, she was cargo. For 40 minutes she sat in darkness, the van winding through what felt like increasingly rough terrain. When the hood came off, she was in a concrete garage beneath a large modern house. The air was sterile, cooled by industrial HVAC units. This was not a hacienda. It was a facility. Ramon led her down a corridor to a bright white room that looked like a cross between a doctor's office and a prison cell. A woman in her 30s sat on a medical cot, her face hollow with exhaustion and fear. She had a broken wrist, set poorly, and bruises in various stages of healing mapped across her arms. This is Alina, Ramon said, his voice devoid of inflection. She is a valuable asset. She had an accident. Fix her, make her presentable. He left, locking the door behind him. Anya approached slowly. I'm a nurse. Can you tell me what happened? The woman, Alina, flinched at her touch. She spoke in a whisper, her Spanish accented with Romanian. They bring you to fix the merchandise, that is all. The word merchandise hit Anya like a physical blow. This was the cartel's other business, human trafficking. The research was no longer abstract. It was trembling in front of her. El Silencio's empire wasn't just built on drugs and guns, but on people. Anya treated Alina's injuries with a tenderness that felt like rebellion. She reset the wrist, cleaned the wounds. As she worked, Alina whispered fragments of her story, taken from Bucharest with promises of a hotel job in Cancun, passport confiscated, moved north to this processing house. She was being prepared for transport to the United States. They beat you to break you. Then they fix you so the clients are not scared, Alina said, her eyes dead. You are part of the fixing. Anya's hands shook. She was no longer just patching up soldiers. She was an integral part of the trafficking machine, sanitizing human suffering for market. Her medical skills were a tool for commodification. When she finished, Ramon returned with 2 other men. They evaluated Alina like livestock, nodding at Anya's work. Good, she will heal clean. The patron was right. You are useful. For 3 days, this was Anya's new reality. She was held in a small, monitored room adjacent to the medical facility. She treated 3 more women and 2 young men, all with similar stories, all valuable assets needing repair. Each treatment carved another piece out of her soul. She was a mechanic in a human garage. On the 3rd night, El Silencio arrived. He toured the facility, then came to see her. He seemed pleased. You adapt, this is good. Your range is broader than I anticipated. He handed her a new phone, more sophisticated than the burner. This will be your sole device. Your old life, your old number, they no longer exist. You have been officially terminated from the clinic for theft of medical supplies. The police report has been filed. Anya's world tilted. They hadn't just pulled her into their world. They had systematically burned the bridge back to her own. Her professional reputation, her legal standing, were now ashes. She was unmoored, existing only within their architecture. Why was all she could manage. Loyalty requires totality, he said simply. You are now a full-time asset of the organization. Your compensation will reflect this. Your family's comfort will be guaranteed. Their safety, however, is now permanently contingent on your performance and your silence. You see the scale of our operations here. Discretion is not a preference. It is the foundation. He left her with Ramon, who laid out the new rules. She would live at this secure facility. She would have a guarded apartment on the premises. She would be on call 24/7 for medical needs across the organization, from wounded sicarios to trafficked victims needing preparation. She was no longer Nurse Lopez of the Santa Cecilia Clinic. She was the property of the cartel's logistical arm. The horror was systematic. The cartel, as the research indicated, had moved beyond coursing public hospitals. They had built their own private, secure medical infrastructure, and Anya was now a cornerstone of it. The sheer scale of the operation meant there was no escape. They had lawyers, police, and government officials on payroll. A missing persons report for her would go nowhere. If she ran, her family would be executed as a message. Weeks bled into a month. Anya moved through the sterile halls like a ghost. She treated gunshot wounds. She treated infections among the trafficked women held in crowded dormitories. She prescribed antibiotics. She set bones. Every day, she signed her own moral death certificate. The only spark of humanity was Valentina. El Silencio had his daughter brought to the facility occasionally, stating the mountain air was good for her. The girl's visits were the only time Anya saw something other than brutality or terror in the eyes of a patient. It was during one of Valentina's visits that Anya found her moment. The girl was coloring in Anya's small apartment while El Silencio attended a meeting. Valentina left her backpack on a chair. Peeking out was a small, pink tablet computer, a child's toy, but one with internet connectivity. A tool the cartel likely monitored, but perhaps with less scrutiny than their own encrypted devices. A reckless, desperate idea took root. It was suicide. But a life spent as a tool for this machine was a slower form of suicide anyway. The next time Valentina visited, Anya engaged her more, drawing pictures with her, building trust. She mentioned she loved dolphins just like Valentina. Could you show me dolphin pictures on your tablet next time? She asked. Valentina nodded enthusiastically. A week later, the girl returned, tablet in hand. While she scrolled through dolphin photos, Anya acted. She pretended to get a glass of water, spilling it across the small table. "Oh, I'm so clumsy," she exclaimed, grabbing the tablet. "Let me dry it off." She hurried into the bathroom, locking the door. Her hands moved faster than ever in an operating room. She turned off the tablet's Wi-Fi. She opened the Notes app. Using her fingertip, she began to write, not in text, but by taking screenshots of words she typed. Patient log, FEB March, location, Northern Complex. She listed coded descriptions, dates, injury types, genders, the words trafficking indicators. She took a screenshot of her own government ID next to a bloody gauze pad from that day's procedure. She took a photo of the view from her bathroom window, showing the unique volcanic rock formation she'd seen on the drive-in. The evidence was crude, but it was something. A digital scream into the void. She heard a knock. "Anya, is my tablet okay?" Valentina called. "Almost done." Anya wiped the device, closed the notes, and reopened the dolphin gallery. She took a deep breath, unlocked the door, and handed the tablet back. All dry, good as new. Her heart didn't stop pounding for hours. The evidence was on the tablet in the screenshot gallery. If Valentina connected to Wi-Fi at her home and the photos synced to a cloud account, it was a thread, a 1,000,000-to-1 chance. But it was the only thread she had. The system, however, was designed to crush hope. 2 days later, Rahman came to her medical room. His face was granite. He placed a printed photograph on the stainless steel table. It was the screenshot of her ID and the bloody gauze. "Explain this," he said. They had been monitoring the tablet. Of course they had. Every device, every signal was theirs. Her rebellion had lasted less than 48 hours. Anya's blood turned to ice. She said nothing. "The patron is disappointed," Rahman continued. "He considered you intelligent. This was not intelligent, it was emotional, a liability." He leaned in. "Your brother at the University of Guadalajara. He has a girlfriend, yes, Maria. She works at a cafe near campus. It would be a tragedy if something happened to her. To make your brother understand the new stakes." They weren't just threatening her family now. They were threatening an innocent third party to amplify the pain. The cruelty was calibrated, exquisite. "I understand," Anya whispered, the fight draining out of her. "Good, you will have one final chance to demonstrate your loyalty. A test," Rahman explained. A rival cartel, having learned of their valuable medical asset, had made an offer to buy her contract. El Silencio had refused. The rivals had then kidnapped a low-level cartel courier who was also, inconveniently, the nephew of a key politician on their payroll. They were offering a trade, the courier for the nurse. "The patron does not trade his assets," Rahman said, "but he is curious about your loyalty. You will be present at the exchange meeting. You will stand in the open as if you are the commodity being traded. Our snipers will be in position. When the rivals produce the courier, we will eliminate their team and retrieve our man. You will be the bait." Anya stared at him. They were going to use her as a human shield, a piece of live bait in a cartel shootout. Her survival was not guaranteed. It was barely a consideration. "And if I'm shot?" "Then you die proving your loyalty and your family is cared for. If you run or warn them, your family and the girlfriend die slowly in pieces mailed to your brother." He laid out a map. The exchange was set for the abandoned airstrip at Cerro del Muerto in 72 hours. "Prepare yourself, Nurse Lopez. This is your redemption, or your epitaph." He left her alone in the white room. The walls seemed to close in. Every path led to death, a quick death on the airstrip, a slow death of the soul as their slave, or the witnessed death of everyone she loved. The system was perfect. It offered only choices between horrors. But as she looked at the map of the airstrip, a final, desperate plan began to form. It wasn't a plan for escape. It was a plan for annihilation. If she was to be bait in a cartel war, perhaps she could turn the trap against everyone. She would need to get a message out, not for rescue, but for a different kind of fire to be brought down on them all. The cartel had taught her one thing. In a world of total control, the only weapon left was total sacrifice. She looked at her reflection in the stainless steel cabinet. The woman who had sworn to do no harm was gone. In her place was someone who understood that sometimes, to stop a monster, you have to become a different kind of monster altogether. The airstrip at Cerro del Muerto wasn't an end. It was a detonator, and she would be the one to push the button. In the cold, pre-dawn darkness, they dressed her in a white medical coat, a stark beacon against the desert scrub. Ramon handed her a small, plastic emergency whistle. If anything goes wrong, blow this. It will signal our men to extract you. Anya knew it was a lie. The whistle was a prop, a piece of theater to sell her role as a valuable, protected asset. It would more likely draw the rivals' bullets first. The convoy to Cerro del Muerto was a ghost train, 5 vehicles moving without headlights along goat trails. Anya rode in the middle car, flanked by 2 silent guards. She held the map in her mind, overlaid with her desperate plan. Her goal was not to survive the shootout, but to shape it. To create a spectacle so violent, so public, it would force a reaction too big for the cartels to bury. The abandoned airstrip was a cracked concrete scar under a bruised purple sky. El Silencio's men took positions in the surrounding hills, rifles glinting in the first weak light. Anya was walked to the center of the tarmac and left there, utterly exposed. The wind whipped her coat. She felt like the last person on Earth. At exactly 6 a.m., 3 SUVs rolled onto the far end of the strip. The rival cartel, Los Serpients, emerged. They pushed a hooded man forward, the courier. Their leader, a man with a serpent tattoo coiling up his neck, shouted across the distance, "Where is the nurse?" Ramon's voice, amplified by a bullhorn, echoed back, "She is here. Send the courier forward. The nurse will walk to the midpoint." This was the choreography of betrayal. Anya knew the moment the courier was halfway, the snipers would fire and the war would begin. She took a deep breath and began to walk, not toward the midpoint, but diagonally, toward a derelict control tower at the edge of the strip. It was a slight deviation, but enough to break the script. "Stop, walk straight." Ramon's voice crackled with anger through an earpiece she'd been given. She ignored it. She raised her hands above her head, not in surrender, but in a clear, deliberate signal of disruption. The rival cartel, confused, stopped the courier. Suspicion erupted. Shots rang out, not from the planned sniper positions, but from Los Serpients who thought they were being double-crossed. The courier dropped. Chaos erupted. El Silencio's snipers opened fire, raking the rival vehicles. Anya sprinted for the cover of the control tower as bullets kicked up concrete around her. This was her only chance. Inside the tower, reeking of bird droppings and rust, she found what she'd hoped for, the skeletal remains of a radio console. Useless. But on the wall, behind a rotten cabinet, was an old, hardwired telephone line. It was disconnected, but the junction box on the pole outside might still link to something. She had no tools, no time. She heard boots on the stairs. Ramon burst in, his face contorted with rage. "You stupid woman, you've ruined everything." He raised his pistol. Anya didn't flinch. She pointed past him out the window. "Look." The firefight had escalated beyond a skirmish. Los Serpients, it turned out, had brought reinforcements. Trucks full of men were pouring onto the airstrip from a hidden access road. This wasn't a simple exchange. It was an ambush designed to eliminate El Silencio's leadership. Ramon's radio exploded with panicked voices. They were outnumbered. In that second of his distraction, Anya acted. She grabbed a rusted metal pipe from the floor and swung. It connected with Ramon's wrist. The pistol clattered away. They struggled, crashing against the wall. He was stronger, but she was fueled by a final, pure fury. She clawed at his face, her thumb finding his eye. He screamed, recoiling. She shoved him backwards, and he stumbled through the rotten railing of an interior landing, falling 10 feet to the concrete below with a sickening crunch. Anya didn't wait to see if he moved. She scrambled down the stairs, past his still form, and out a back door. The airstrip was a war zone. Dozens of men were engaged in a close-quarter gunfight. The courier was dead. Both sides were taking heavy losses. Anya's white coat made her a target. She ripped it off, running in her scrubs toward the only other structure, a small fuel depot. Her plan had worked too well. She had triggered the bloodbath, but now she was trapped in the middle of it. As she ducked behind a fuel drum, she saw him, El Silencio. He was not in the hills directing the fight. He was on the ground behind an SUV, firing a rifle with cold precision. He saw her at the same moment. Their eyes locked across the smoke and chaos. In his gaze, she saw no anger, only a profound, chilling disappointment. She had not just disobeyed, she had betrayed his concept of order. He shouted an order. Two of his men broke off and began advancing toward her position. Anya was cornered. The fuel depot offered no escape. Then a new sound cut through the gunfire, the deep, shuddering thump of helicopter rotors. Not one, but three dark, unmarked military helicopters crested the ridge, their searchlights spearing the dawn gloom. The Mexican Army's special forces, they were not here by chance. As the helicopters descended, disgorging troops, the cartel gunfight disintegrated into panic. The soldiers moved with professional lethality, overwhelming both factions. Anya stayed low, her hands visible. A soldier spotted her, yelled in Spanish, "Civilian, do not move." She was roughly detained, handcuffed, and shoved into the back of an armored vehicle. Through the window, she saw El Silencio being subdued, a knee in his back, his face pressed into the asphalt. The system had finally met a bigger system. But the surprise was not the raid, it was who orchestrated it. Anya was taken to a secure military base, not a police station. She was interrogated not by soldiers, but by a severe woman in a crisp suit from the Fiscalia General de la República, Mexico's Attorney General's office. "You are Anya Lopez, the nurse from Clinica Santa Cecilia." It was not a question. "Yes." The woman, Agent Ruiz, slid a tablet across the table. On it was the screenshot Anya had taken, her ID next to the bloody gauze. This image was uploaded to a cloud server associated with the email account valentina@mail.com. It was flagged by our cyber unit 3 weeks ago. We have been building a case since. Your reckless act gave us the first fixed location. The volcanic rock in the background was the key. Anya was stunned. Her 1,000,000-to-1 chance had actually worked. Valentina's tablet had synced, and the authorities had been watching. The army hadn't come to save her. They had come because she had accidentally given them a target. "You are in a unique position," Agent Ruiz continued. "You are a victim of coercion, but you are also a material witness to murder, kidnapping, torture, and trafficking. Your testimony and your cooperation could dismantle a significant part of the El Silencio network. In exchange, we can offer you and your immediate family placement in a protected witness program. A new life, far from here." It was the choice she had dreamed of, offered from the ashes of her disaster. But there was a catch. What about the others, the women in the facility, Elena? Agent Ruiz's expression softened slightly. The northern complex was raided simultaneously with the airstrip operation. We have detained over 60 individuals and freed 17 trafficking victims. Elena is safe. She asked about you. The weight on Anya's chest lifted, just a fraction. She agreed. She spent the next month debriefing with investigators, identifying safe houses, detailing the medical operations, and nomming corrupt officials El Silencio had mentioned in passing. Her testimony was the hammer that broke the case open. El Silencio, whose real name was revealed to be Eduardo Rojas Villa, was charged with a litany of crimes. The public scandal was immense. The involvement of a healthcare professional forced a political reckoning. Within a year, new federal protocols were established for protecting medical workers in cartel zones, and a special task force was created to investigate hospital takeovers. Anya's family was quietly extracted from Guadalajara. They now live under new identities in another country. Anya does not practice medicine anymore. The memories are too sharp, the echoes of the operating room too loud. She works in a library, surrounded by silent, peaceful stories. But there is one final, surprising detail. Every year on the anniversary of the airstrip raid, Anya receives a plain postcard with no return address. The first year, it was a picture of a dolphin. The second, a drawing of a piano. This year, it was a pressed violet. They are from Valentina. Somehow, the girl, now living with a grandmother in Spain far from her father's legacy, remembers. And in her own silent way, she says thank you. Anya Lopez saved a life one stormy night in a border clinic. That act plunged her into a world of forced servitude and moral ruin. But in the end, her fight to escape didn't just save her own life. It helped dismantle a machine of suffering and gave a stolen child a chance at peace. The debt, finally, was paid. The story of Anya Lopez is both an extreme exception and a stark representation of a hidden crisis. For every nurse or doctor who is forcibly recruited, there are dozens more working under the silent, constant pressure of that threat. The research is clear. In cartel-controlled territories, healthcare doesn't exist outside the shadow of organized crime. Medical facilities become strategic assets. Healing becomes a transaction. And the oath to do no harm confronts an impossible calculus. Treat the wounded monster or become a casualty yourself. Anya's path, from coerced caregiver to accidental informant to protected witness, is a narrow alley of survival that few find. For most medical professionals caught in this web, the choices are grim and permanent. They become permanent fixtures of the machine, their skills weaponized, their silence purchased through fear for their families. The cartels have learned that controlling health infrastructure is as vital as controlling the drug routes. It is a chilling evolution in their dominance. The postcards from Valentina are a fragile thread of grace in a story woven with violence. They are a reminder that within these systems of absolute control, human connections still form, and they can, against all odds, lead to a form of redemption. But we cannot mistake one thread for the whole tapestry. The broader fabric is one of systemic failure. When clinics close because doctors flee, when life-saving care is withheld from civilians because operating rooms are occupied by gunmen, when healing professionals become targets, the social contract in those regions isn't just broken, it's incinerated. The research cited in this documentary shows this isn't speculation. It is a documented, ongoing reality in hotspots across Mexico and other cartel-influenced regions. The closure of dozens of clinics, the murders and kidnappings of medical staff, the private hospitals built by traffickers, these are the data points of a quiet war on healthcare itself. So what remains? For Anya, a life of quiet anonymity, forever looking over her shoulder, forever wondering if the postcards might one day stop. For the system, a slow, grinding battle of reforms against entrenched corruption and fear. The protocols created after cases like this are a start, but they are just words on paper until they are enforced in the dust of places like Santa Cecilia. The ultimate lingering question is this. In a world where the lines between healer and hostage, between duty and damnation, are deliberately blurred, where does true courage lie? Is it in the dramatic, explosive resistance on an airstrip? Or is it in the doctor who shows up for their shift tomorrow in a clinic that might be seized tonight, treating whoever comes through the door, navigating that moral maze one impossible decision at a time, choosing to heal in a world designed to break? There are no easy answers, only stories. This has been one of them. If you found this exploration into the shadows where medicine and organized crime collide compelling, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories shaping our world. Thanks for watching.